Hello, everyone. Welcome to UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts. I'm Blaine Gilmer. That is Jed May. We are here once again to be talking all things Georgia football recruiting. The signing day on the February 1st signing day is here on Wednesday. But in the meantime, we have Jed, a pretty good guest. And Jed, you're muted if you don't know. By the way, we got a nice guest that's going to be on here with us. But first, Jed, how are you doing this evening, man? I know you've had some stuff going on. So before we get into our interview here, how's everything going with you?
Yeah, going good. Been busy, like you said, and we took a little trip out of town this weekend and go watch my first NHL hockey game up in Charlotte. If there's any hurricane or in Raleigh, if there's any Hurricanes fans out there, but Blaine, I don't think anybody wants to hear me talk. I think
Enough
people are
of
here to hear
enough of the pleasantries,
hear
huh?
numero uno that we've got waiting in the wings.
Gonna get to our guest, the number one player in the country for the class 2024, none other than Dylan Raiola. Dylan, thank you for joining us, man. We greatly appreciate you coming on and being part of UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts here.
Of course, anytime. I always love doing this kind of stuff for you guys.
Absolutely. Well, you can see right there, right off the bat, we've put it in the comments and on here. Follow Dylan on Instagram using @Dylan.Raiola on IG or on Twitter @Raiola Dylan. Just his name's switched around there. So, man, Dylan, it's got to be a crazy time for you. You were committed to Ohio State for a while there, and then obviously the decommit. Now you've opened things back up and taken some visits and really establishing a rapport with some different schools. So just kind of talk to me about that aspect of it with Georgia. How has the University of Georgia gone about establishing a relationship with you?
Yeah. Coach Smart's done a great job with that. They stayed consistent even when I was committed. Maybe not checking in with me, but just my parents. And then, once I decommitted, they kind of let things dial down. And then the dogs are back and recruiting me. So, Coach Smart, Coach Munkin, Coach Bobo, really a lot of the offensive staff. And, I'm just grateful to be viewed as that in their eyes. And, I'm excited to get to Athens and enjoy some time with them.
Absolutely. And, you mentioned Kirby Smart. A defensive guy. We all know there's no secret there. How is it talking with Coach Smart? What does he kind of like bring up to you? What's the without giving away all the secrets and stuff, what's kind of the conversation with him, more of a defensive oriented guy, and what does he say to you about how they would use you in that program and what they would like to see out of you if you came to Georgia?
Yeah. Coach Smart, his main message is that he really wants me. And, I just have a lot of respect for him and how he goes about his business and how he's created Georgia and how he's used that program to just, skyrocket through the roof. He's able to compete with every school and dominate them. He showed that. And just seeing and being able to talk with him about, just what his vision is for me and my plan. If I were to come to Georgia, it's special to be able to talk to such a high caliber guy like that. And he really loves his family. And, that to me, that means a lot. And that shows me a lot.
Jed, what you got for Dylan here?
Yeah, Dylan, I know you've been to Athens several times. You've been to games out there, but you were also in LA for the national championship a couple weeks ago. Outside of the weather, which kind of sucked, what was that experience like? What was it like being in the middle of being in that stadium? Obviously, you've got family connections to TCU as well, but being in that stadium and seeing Georgia deliver, one of the greatest championship game performances I think college football has ever seen.
Yeah, that's definitely a bucket list thing for me. Growing up as a kid, you dream of things like that, going to a national championship and watching them win. I was very fortunate. My dad got to get tickets in the Georgia section. So, I was all dogs that game. I had my little red pom-pom thing going, cheering for them every single second of that game. So, it was just such a cool experience watching Coach Smart coach, just watching that offense perform, and then their defense playing lights out the way they did. It just shows how much of a team they are and how close they are and how well they play together.
And I know Jed got another question for you. I want to interject. You and your sister getting any kind of fight during that with you cheering for Georgia and her being at TCU? She was like elbowing you in the ribs during the game. What's going on there? You there? Hello? Dylan, you there, man?
Yeah, I'm there. Yeah,
you hear me?
Yeah, it cut out a little bit, but I heard it. I heard the end of it. I know where you're going. I did. My mom had to tell me, I had to calm down a little bit, but I was letting her hear it for a little bit. But it was good. She told me at the end of the game the only other team she would cheer for is Georgia. So, that's a win for me.
There you go. Jed, I know you got another one for him there.
Yeah, just this whole recruiting process, there's so much stuff that's thrown at you and pitches from all these different schools. What's the most important thing to you when you're looking at all these different schools? Is the offensive system? Is it the skill players on the roster, the coaching staff? When you're evaluating these schools, what's the the most important thing you're looking at in a future school?
Yeah, I think as a quarterback, a relationship with the head coach, whether it be offense or defense or special teams, I just feel that that's very important to me. Relationship with the offensive coordinator, a system that will fit me, and just a college town. And I think Athens checks all those boxes, and that's just a great town to be around. I've been there 4 times, coming back for a 5th, and I just love what Georgia does. Love how they go about their business. And back to your question, it's just all comes down to relationships, and just being transparent with everything. And it's going to be exciting to see. But I love what Georgia's offering right now.
You did bring up offensive coordinator there. Obviously, it's no secret that Todd Monken is getting pursued by NFL teams, but that's kind of what happens when you win back-to-back national championship. Everybody wants a part of success, and I know you've kind of seen that. Who knows what's going to happen if that were to happen? Just tell people. I mean, how much would that impact? What would that make you kind of take a step back and reevaluate? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think Coach Monken and Coach Smart, they've been transparent with all these interviews going on, and I'm happy for Coach Monken that he's able to go interview with NFLs, and he's earned that, and he deserves it. He won 2 back-to-back natties, and I wouldn't say change things, but it would definitely be something to look at. I know Coach Smart has the next guy. If Coach Monken were to move on, he has the next guy in the system already, ready to step in and fill those shoes right away.
Absolutely. So what does your timeline look like right now? I know you went out to USC. I think you're going to try to maybe get to another couple of schools, maybe out west, and then, of course, a visit to Georgia. But when do you think that Georgia visit might be, and what does your recruitment timeline as a whole look like?
Yeah, well, I'll start with the visit. I actually got everything booked out, ready to come March 18th. So I'll be there for the first spring practice. And so I look forward to that. But for a timeline, I really don't have a timeline. I don't want to put a timeline on my decision. I feel that you put a timeline on yourself that you won't make the best decision. So just really letting everything happen naturally, and just being patient. I think learning from that before when I had to decommit, I kind of jumped the gun and I rushed a little bit, but you learn, you live and learn. And, I'm fortunate to have this second opportunity at this thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Jed, I know you got one more for him.
Yeah. Just, obviously the number one player in the class, you've got some gravity to you. Who are some of the guys, in your class that you've really built some strong relationships with and that you're recruiting maybe to come play with you no matter where you end up?
Yeah. Shoot, the list can go forever. I want to keep the Dog fans waiting, or just listening. But I really have a good relationship with KJ Bolden. He's an athlete. Ellis Robinson, a couple guys that are committed already. Peyton Woodyard, He's out here on the west side, so him and I have got a great relationship before he committed, and he's always texting me, hitting me up, recruiting me myself. So Jeremiah Smith, he's committed to Ohio State, but we stay in touch just to see what happens. And Nycar, Landon Thomas, it goes on for a little while. Sammy Brown, Brandon Baker. I'm kind of recruiting everywhere. Make sure I fill my obligations with the coaching staff, so the coaches know that I'm working. But no, I think it's just really when I talk to them, the main message is just a relationship part. We can all get caught up in this recruiting stuff, and we forget that we're kids, and we're still in high school. So, I really just tell them, take your time, enjoy high school. If you need me, I'm here. If they need to talk about anything, I'm always willing to help somebody, lend a hand, and I'm always gonna be there for whoever needs anything.
Dylan, no stranger with your family background to the NFL, so we got to ask you before you get out here. Got Eagles and Chiefs in the Super Bowl. What are you thinking? Give us your thoughts. Who's going to win that in a couple of weeks? Who's winning that one?
I got to go with my guy Mahomes. I mean, that's been my dude. I love watching him play. I try to mirror my game after him. That's hard to do because he's a special talent. You can't find that everywhere. And I just think the Chiefs are going to do it. But no disrespect to the Eagles. I know a few people on the Eagles, and hopefully it's out here in Arizona, so maybe we can go to the game and
there you go.
The Super Bowl, maybe go to the Natty and go to the Super Bowl in 2 years. That's a good way to start off 2023, I think.
Absolutely. Everybody make sure to, we put it in the comments up there at the top, and then also you see it on the screen at Dylan.Raiola on IG, at Raiola Dylan on Twitter. So make sure to give him a follow. Now, we've talked about football, we've talked about recruitment, stuff like that, but Dylan, we wanted to give you the opportunity here because you, like many others, were touched by the tragedy that occurred with the University of Georgia when Chandler LaCroix and Dylan Willock and excuse me, I'm blanking. Devin Willock lost his life there in that tragedy a couple weeks ago. You were actually scheduled to be on with us that night, but I know it affected you a little bit. So just give us your thoughts on how you remember Chandler LaCroix specifically and how she impacted you and your family.
Yeah, that was a hard couple 3 to 4 day stretch with my family. Chandler was there for my first ever visit in camp. So I was there in June 2nd, 2021. That was my first ever camp visit, everything, and she was my host. And I'm a big believer, and I think God set that up perfectly for her to be my first host ever in this recruiting world. And we got to build a great relationship. She's always smiling. When you're around her, you'll be touched by her smile. She's such a tender heart. And she loves her Georgia football. I used to call her during the games, during the national championship game, and she just loves her Georgia football. And I'm very blessed to have crossed paths with her. I got to know her outside of recruiting. Just the way she took care of my family. That really meant a lot to me. And just really how she carried herself, and the way she impacted that whole building. I think we all can agree that it was a hard couple 3 to 4 days when we had to find out she was gone. But I always remember her. I always keep her in my thoughts. I know she's watching me from above. And I'm just very, very blessed to have crossed paths with her. And I kind of have something more to play for too now, more than football. I always keep her in my thoughts before I play football.
Absolutely. Well said. And it was a tragedy that impacted so many. And Dylan, very well spoken, very thoughtful. You're going to do great no matter what school you end up at. But we greatly appreciate you coming on here with us and interacting. This is really, if you're going to think about it, this is your first live performance before Dog Fans. So whether
it's pretty sweet. I really appreciate you guys for having me. Everybody that tuned in, I'm thankful for you guys that tuned in, and that's kind of all I have for me. But go Dogs.
Absolutely. So Dylan Raiola here with us. Appreciate you being on, and we'll be keeping up with you. Expect that spring visit March 18th, and we'll be looking forward to talking to you after that and seeing how it goes, Dylan.
Yes, sir. Have a good one. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. We'll see you. All right. So that is Dylan Raiola, the number 1 overall prospect in the class of 2024. And Jed, we have to take a minute and dissect some things that were said, because I know your Big J journalism spidey senses went off on a couple of those statements that went off there. Jed, what was your takeaway from that interview with Dylan Raiola?
Yeah, I mean, one, and I see it in the comments over here. He seems like a good kid. I mean, if there was ever a kid that had a right to be, let's see, how can I say this? PG. If there was ever a kid that had a right to have a big head about him, it would be a quarterback that's the number 1 player in the country, right? But he comes off as a real level-headed, humble kid. But yeah, I mean, when you talk about the guys he has really strong relationships with and guys he's recruiting, there was a very strong Georgia tint to that list when you talk about Peyton Woodyard, Nye Carr, Landon Thomas, Ellis Robinson, who is a huge Georgia target and is announcing on Wednesday. Georgia seems like are in a good position for Sammy Brown, KJ Bolden. I mean, if I'm Kirby Smart, that sounds like a list of guys I would want Raiola to be recruiting if he was committed. So that stands out. And then just the kid can't stop smiling when he's talking about Monken and watching that game and giving his sister a hard time at the national championship. I mean, that kid, he really seems like and listen, we talk about all the time. Kirby Smart doesn't burn bridges, whether it's the transfer portal, whether it's kids that are committed. This is why Dylan Raiola is committed to Ohio State for, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, and then he backs off the pledge, and now Georgia looks like they're in a great spot to potentially land the a franchise quarterback. So that's what happens. The staff maintains these relationships, and then they're in prime position to pounce. Once Dylan comes back on the market. So I think what comes through in that interview is that Georgia's done a great job in this recruitment. They look to be maybe the favorite at one point before Dylan ended up picking Ohio State, and now they look like they might be the favorite again.
And Dylan has a lot of if Dylan were to come to Georgia, or if he were to go to USC, or he were to go to Nebraska or Ohio State or wherever he goes, he's going to have major influence on people. And we're seeing that on Twitter live right now. That's going on. Jonte Gilbert, who's a 2025 Ohio State commit that visited Georgia this weekend, he just liked the link to the show here tonight. So I'm just there's lots of stuff going on. Jeremy Barbary asked here, how would he be affected if Monken leaves? We addressed that directly. Dylan did in the interview. I asked him, hey, straight up, has Georgia been transparent about these interviews with Monken, and how would it affect your recruitment? He said, Jed, correct me if I'm wrong, but he said, hey, Kirby Smart has been told him about those interviews. He said he was happy for Todd Monken, that he deserves to get those interviews, whether he goes or not. And also he said that Kirby Smart's already got the guy in place in the system to step up and kind of take that OC role should that happen. That sounds like Mike Bobo, if you ask me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could be taken to mean that Kirby has a guy he would go after, not necessarily in the system. You know what I mean? But either way, it's not shocking to any of us that follow this program that Kirby would have a contingencies plan in place, especially with a guy like Todd Monken, who, let's face it, when he was hired, no one necessarily thought he'd be spending the next 20 years in Athens, right? With his background and the experience he's had at all levels of football. So, but yeah, I think the main takeaway from that is like if Todd Monken were to leave, and I think Dylan knows, if
I
Todd
think he knows
Monken
that
were
there's somebody familiar with the system that's going to
exactly.
step up in
It's
there.
not like he would be thrown into a world of unknowns if Todd Monken were to leave. I think if Todd Monken accepted the Buccaneers job tomorrow, obviously you want to see how the hire comes in and all that kind of stuff, but he would have a good idea of, okay, here's what's going to happen. Here's how Kirby will address this. Here's what things might look like, which is huge because, a decision timeline and Monken's leaving, it's all kind of coming together maybe at the same time here. So to at least have a little bit of to avoid some uncertainty there is huge.
And I think apart from football, apart from whether Dylan Raiola goes to Georgia, whether he goes to USC, whether he goes to Oregon, Nebraska, Ohio State, wherever, what I took from that, Jed, that was one of the more impressive showings in an interview that I've seen from a young man. He's very well spoken. He's very thoughtful and introspective. And I thought that his sharing what Chandler LaCroix meant to him and his family and how much they were impacted by the tragedy of losing of the life of her and Devin Willock in the wreck a few weeks ago. I thought that was very eloquent and, very well done.
Yeah, and like you said, it was scheduled to, I guess the wreck happened on Sunday morning.
After,
He was supposed to be, he was supposed to be on the show the day after, and it affected him and his family so much. And then listen, we talked about this, I guess when we did our show that week, and it's like these recruiting assistants or direct, whatever the job titles are, they have a huge impact with a lot of these kids. I mean, like Dylan said, she was basically his introduction to the recruiting world. He shows up in Athens, and remember that 2021 Blaine was coming out of the COVID dead period when, I wouldn't be shocked if Dylan had never been on a college campus before for a visit at that point in his recruitment. So Chandler LaCroix was one of the first faces he met in the recruiting world, and obviously she made a huge impact on him, and that continued through all of his visits to Athens. So, just like you said, a very eloquent and thoughtful response to things. And I think it was telling that he said, yeah, I've got a little more to play for now with Chandler staying on his mind.
Yeah, Georgia, if they were to land a Dylan Raiola and already having Ryan Puglisi on board, man, you couldn't get two more impressive young men, not just athletes, but impressive young men. They both came on this show, are gracious with their time and have acquitted themselves greatly in their, communication skills and everything that's going on. I think that's something that you look for in a quarterback, somebody that's comfortable, that can, talk in front of people and do that. So really a great problem for Georgia to have if both of those end up being commits. And I think it is worth noting that we talked directly to Ryan Puglisi and asked him the uncomfortable question. We said, hey, if Dylan Raiola does become a Georgia Bulldog, what is your thoughts on that? How does that go? And he said, it doesn't change anything. I'm still coming to Georgia. That Georgia where I want to be and I want to compete. So if that indeed is the case, then man, first of all, you and Dash and Roddy are going to be really busy when that comes around on, that quarterback competition comes on. You thought Stetson and JT was something, or Fromm and Fields was something. You didn't see nothing. Did you see a potential Raiola and Puglisi? So that would be something else right there. But let's go ahead and mention that, as you see on the screen, UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts is brought to you by Turner Wood and Smith Insurance in cooperation with Auto Owners Insurance. And listen, they are top of the line, just like Georgia's won back-to-back national championships. Turner, Wood, and Smith Insurance and Auto Owners Insurance, top of the line when it comes to the insurance game locally here in Georgia or regionally. They can help you out as well, whether it's life, home, car, business insurance. Both companies have been around for over 100 years. Turner, Wood, and Smith, great on the customer service side, is going to make sure that they point you in the right direction, and they have these wonderful policy holders like auto owners, policy providers like auto owners, that is going to make sure that you have all your needs taken care of. I know my family has benefited from working with both, and you should do so as well. You can see the links scrolling across, or the URLs for each company scrolling across the bottom of the screen or in the description, whether you're listening on podcast or watching on video. All right, Jed, we got some questions here, and we have, despite that great interview with 2024 number one, there's still some 2023 business to take care of. And our first question comes from Knox 2019.
Yeah, what are we hearing on Duce? The guy can be Kyle Pitts, but if he goes to USC, I stop worrying about him totally. Just being honest. So yeah, this one is we've been saying that Duce Robinson is he's the main domino left to fall, right? In Georgia's 23 class. And now we've been hearing that it's not a certainty that he commits on Wednesday. I spoke with some sources today, and they're basically saying, yeah, there's baseball stuff, there's basketball stuff. Duce, he doesn't really have a reason to rush. At this point, he's obviously not an early enrollee, so the timeline might be pushed back a little bit, maybe take another visit. Georgia and USC are still kind of the main contenders, with Texas kind of in there as well. But maybe we that might not be happening on Wednesday. We'll keep monitoring that over the next probably 24 to 36 hours and see how that goes. Jamal Meriweather, Georgia commit, is expected to sign with Georgia on Wednesday. Talked to some Brunswick coaches today. And Walker Lyons as well. It's got to watch on Tuesday. Another tight end that we talked about a lot. But yeah, Duce Robinson, we're still it's kind of up in the air now, to be honest, whether he ends up signing and committing on Wednesday. So we'll be sure to keep it on the UGA Sports Vault, because as soon as we hear something, that's where we'll go.
Yeah, no doubt. Listen, Duce Robinson, can we talk for just a minute about how, whether or not, which, listen, all of our sources at Rivals on the national level, everything that we hear and the sources that we talk to have indicated that Georgia's in great position here, even with some of this late stuff going on at the end with Duce Robinson. But even if he were not to come to Georgia, can we just talk about, I put in the original tweet that we put out promoting the show, that Todd Hartley is a ninja, and somebody else that is a ninja and is sneaking into the conversation here is Trent Smallwood. Welcome in, Trent. We appreciate you coming in, bud.
Hey, I'm glad I can make it. How was the interview?
No, dude, it was. I'm gonna. Maybe I'm a prisoner of the moment. I think it's the best one we've had here on Rumors versus Facts. Broke a little news. He shared that he will be making broke the news here on UGA Sports Rumors versus Fact that he'll be making his visit to Athens March 18th, the first spring practice. So
that's my birthday.
Hey, happy birthday to Trent. He's getting a Dylan Raiola visit to Athens to cover. So listen, that's why you tune in each and every week, because you don't know what recruits we're going to have on here. You don't know what guests we're going to have on here. And that's why you subscribe to the UGA Sports YouTube channel, the largest Georgia YouTube channel out there. So, make sure you do that. It's absolutely free. Hit that subscribe button, do all that kind of stuff. But Trent, we were talking about Duce Robinson and how, he may even elect not to sign on Wednesday, depending on baseball and things like that. And I'll let you speak on the baseball part in a minute, because, for those of you who don't know, Trent used to coach baseball, heavily involved in it, things of that nature. So he's got much more grasp on what it actually takes for a high schooler to go, pro and get that kind of money to maybe forego some other opportunities. But I was just saying about Todd Hartley, I put in the original tweet that he's like a ninja, because even for Duce Robinson to even consider coming to Georgia with already having Pierce Sperlin and Lawson Lucky in this class, on top of Oscar Delt being there, on top of some guys that are looking in the 2025 class. I mean, it's remarkable. And, oh, yeah, Walker Lyons is in the conversation as well, even though he wouldn't be there till a year or two later. But yeah, I think it's just unbelievable what Todd Hartley's doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, just to think that he's landing. I mean, he could possibly land 4 of the top. I don't even know what they are, but 4 of the top tight ends in the country is just remarkable in one class. I mean, the majority of the time you see 1 or 2 come off the board, and maybe you'd be lucky to land 1 of them. But talking about landing 4 tight ends in one class is just crazy to begin with, and 4 of the top tight ends in the country is just remarkable. So, yeah, I think, that was the discussion down in Orlando. He said he would wants to announce on February 1st, but if he wasn't ready to announce on February 1st, he would push it further back. And at the time, he wasn't too familiar, I guess, with pushing it back and what all that what all that took to do. But I think he's probably got a better grasp on it now. But with that being said, I still think, he's kind of shut everything down. He didn't take a visit this past weekend. He wants to, he's trying to kind of keeping everything close to the vest. And coming into this weekend, I would say Georgia, was the leader. And with no visits taking place, and, I know that's baseball, but I'm not sure what exactly baseball-wise could push it back at this point, unless he's going to wait till after the season, see what kind of season he has, and then you're looking at May. So, I would say he announces either February 1st or soon after. I don't think baseball is going to play a huge part in that decision right there. It's a little different than in the past with the NIL. I mean, a few years ago, if you got drafted 15th, 16th round, you saw high scorers go because, the money. And it might not be a lot of money, might not be the money you want, but it is money. And you can kind of erase that now with NIL.
And I don't know. Are we thinking that he's that high of a draft pick? Is it talking about, top 2, 3 rounds that where there's major money, major signing bonus on the table?
I think there's a lot of false stuff out there with, with the comparisons. I think he, just because he's a spectacular athlete, he draws a lot of comparisons, and I've heard the Aaron Judge and stuff like that. But those are just comparisons. His travel ball numbers were not, flooring to me to say, gosh, those are remarkable stats. I think it would be all on just what kind of athlete he is, how he moves at that size, his arm from the outfield, things like that. But I think he's got a ways to go with the bat before he's ready to play that level.
All right. So that is your update on Duce Robinson there. Jed, we got another question here from old Pine Tree.
Yeah, which non-SEC region top recruits does Georgia have the best shot at as of today in the 2024 class?
Well, I think we just spoke to one that lives out in Arizona that I think they got a pretty good shot with. Trying to think regionally,
there's Ellis Robinson who is at IMG now, but is originally from New York, New Jersey, that area. Justin Scott, who I spoke with earlier tonight from Chicago, got that Georgia offer, I guess, a couple weeks ago and was going to commit, I think, tomorrow originally, and has pushed that back. He's going to be visiting Georgia in the spring for spring practice. Aaron Butler out of California is a guy George looking at as a receiver. He was in town this weekend and seemed to love it. He actually was in town Saturday, stayed overnight, and was back on campus on Sunday. So that's a guy. Blaine, you mentioned Raiola.
Deuce is from Arizona as well. But he's in 2023.
Trying to think.
I guess Walker Lyons would technically can be considered 24. I know there's a bunch of Texas kids that Georgia's after.
Oh, yeah, there's Jordan Seaton from the DMV. The DC area was also in town this weekend.
Yeah, and speaking of that, a guy who may be their number one edge guy on the entire board is Dylan Stewart, who's from Washington, D.C. Georgia absolutely loves that kid and has several coaches have already been up to visit and things like that. So I'd expect there to be a full court press on him. He's out of Friendship Collegiate Academy in Washington, D.C., around 6'5", 230, 235 area there. So a big edge guy right there. That's another one, but that's some of them. Right there. We got a few more questions we got to run through here. KSDJ 1869, Jed.
Yeah, is Georgia done with running backs in the 24 class, or do you see a decommitment coming from the likes? See a decommitment coming from one if the likes of Jarrett Gibson, Cam Davis, or another wants to commit?
I think it's highly unlikely that both those guys end up signing with Georgia that are currently committed right now. I don't like to, and I don't think we really need to throw a name out there into that, but I just think that it's very early, and some of those moves happened earlier than others. But Trent, if Jarrett Gibson, Cam Davis, or any of the top running backs want to be a member of this class, Georgia's going to make a way for them to be on there, whether it's signing 3 or whether it's somebody getting forced out.
Yeah, and you're at a situation where you're going to lose Dejon and you're going to lose Kendall after this year. So the running back room is going to thin out. But I think you'll see 2 at the end of the day. And like you said, I don't think both of the running backs committed right now are going to be with Georgia come signing day next year. But I look for Georgia to try to make another big splash at running back. I think the most recent commit is something that they really have lacked. The James Cook type, the speed, catch the ball in the backfield. I really like his game. So, I don't know which direction they'll go, but I would look more at a more power back kind of guy to pair up one of those guys.
Yeah, we got a YouTube comment here. Jesse, man, this is a recruiting show. If you want to hear about what's going on with the team, then you need to tune in Tuesday to Coach Donnan, or Wednesday when TK and Noshawn are talking a little bit. That's when we do more team. But we appreciate you tuning in, man. But hey, very rightfully people to be excited if Georgia does end up landing Dylan Raiola, and they have Ryan Puglisi there. I mean, what a duo that would be there. But no, we're just messing with you, Jesse. We appreciate everybody tuning in. Let's see. We got another question from KSDG 1989. I'll read this one. Sammy Brown and KJ Bolden were at Clemson, and Jaden Perlotti went to Bama last week. Are we still feeling as confident as last week about Brown and Bolden to UGA? And also, he went on to ask, I couldn't fit it on there, do we need to be worried? Does Georgia need to be worried about Perlotti flipping to Bama? So Jed, I put on there that I think, based off things that I'd been hearing, I think Georgia sits a really good spot with both Sammy Brown and KJ Bolden. You heard Dylan Raiola say that, he's really doing his best to recruit Sammy Brown to wherever he's going to end up. So that would either be Ohio State or Georgia, because that's kind of the common two between those two. I think there's a lot of signs there. What's your thoughts on those two guys?
Yeah, I mean, with Sammy, the 3 kind of from the beginning have been Georgia, Clemson, and Tennessee, and a few others have worked in there. But he was, I want to say, he was one of, if not the first offer for Clemson in that 24 class. So obviously, Dabo Swinney and company have got him as a huge target, and he was there this weekend. But just the way Glenn Schumann has built that relationship. Glenn Schumann, as we saw, I mean, look no farther back than this 23 class, the 23 class is doing insane work at inside linebacker right now. So, Georgia's in a good spot with him. And then KJ Bolden is how many times have we talked about the so-called Buford curse on this show, Blaine? But he's a guy that Georgia's going after really hard. I mean, I don't know that there's, there are a few people that are as high on Georgia's board as KJ Bolden in that class, whether it's at receiver, safety, get him on campus and figure it out position. I mean, he's a guy that they really want. So Georgia's going hard after those two guys. And I think Georgia at minimum is probably top 2 or 3 probably for both of those guys right now, at the worst. And then Jaden Perlotti, is a 25 guy. There's a pretty much 2 years before he
long time.
So there's a long time. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's worth worrying about it too much anyway. But he's a guy that when you talk to him, the Georgia staff's done a good job building relationships with him. I mean, the Georgia staff could look entirely different by the time he signs, for all we know. So, but it's not shocking that he's going to take visits or anything. I mean, Justice Terry is at a 25 commit going to take his visits. It's to be expected with kids that have got that long to go. So I wouldn't I wouldn't shed too many tears over it for sure.
As Trent says all the time, this isn't Clemson where they tell you, hey, if you commit, you can't go, you can't visit anywhere else. Georgia, they let people, because if they ultimately at the end of the day, if they want to go to Georgia, they're going to go to Georgia. Andy Stowe, I'm not going to read your whole question, brother, because we already addressed it with the running back type deal there. But appreciate you as always, Andy, one of our most loyal listeners. Also, I did need to put up there that Andy said during our ad, he put a little plug in there for. Let's see if I can find it. He put a little plug right here for auto owners. He said he's had it for years. So appreciate you repping auto owners. Muschamps Reading Glasses says he actually made the switch a few weeks ago. So there you go. Auto owners is doing its deal over here on Rumors versus Facts. Got a couple more questions. I don't even know if I can read that name. I don't know if that's a name that we can read on air. So I'm just going to read the question. Could we see a commitment from Jordan Thomas, 4-star DL from New Jersey? Hey, you got that Fran Brown connection from up there from his time at Rutgers.
Yeah, and Jordan Thomas is a guy that actually made it to town over the weekend, and I spoke to him last summer when Georgia offered. I talked to him on draft night. Obviously, when Trayvon Walker went #1 overall, he told me at the time that Georgia sees him as a kind of like that 5-tech defensive end, outside linebacker hybrid type. So working on getting in touch with him, but that's another guy we've talked about how over the past couple classes Georgia's working to kind of replenish that position, especially that 5-tech Blaine with with Edric Houston is on that board in this class, and Colin Simmons maybe fits in there, and Champ Thompson is committed to Clemson over the weekend, but that's still a position that's kind of up in the air a little bit, I guess, in the 24 class. And Jordan Thomas is a name to keep an eye on for sure, especially making it back down to Athens this weekend.
Darth Jane says, have you guys noticed a difference in the way top receivers talk about or view the Georgia program? If so, do you expect it to pay dividends? Trent, do you think that this year Georgia, like I said, Stetson Bennett putting up the 6th highest single season passing yardage amount in SEC history, you think it changed how receivers are viewing Georgia?
I mean, just go look at what Georgia did in the portal, and you know what the view on the Georgia program has changed for sure. If you know Todd Monken, he likes to throw the ball. Georgia probably threw the ball more than 90% of the teams in the SEC. A lot of people looked at Ohio State and those type guys as pure passing teams, and Georgia actually passed it more than those teams in the season. So, yeah, I think that the whole the talk has changed. I mean, Georgia went out and landed Anthony Evans and some elite receivers last year, and you didn't see Georgia doing that a couple of years ago, even though they did get some steals with Ladd and AD. But I think that definitely the look of Georgia football and the way the recruits are talking about it, that's all changed. And Georgia's no longer, they're still considered, I guess, a power running team because they can still land the elite backs. But I think wide receivers are taking a notice of what this Georgia offense is doing. So, you definitely see a change. You've heard more about the way Monken runs the offense, the way he likes to spread it around, the way he likes to get his playmakers in space. So that's one of the biggest things I've heard.
Rhett Walmart says winning rings cures any misconceptions. Yeah, that's for sure over there. And to piggyback off of that, listen, even this year, Georgia was extremely explosive on offense, but what was one of Stetson's strengths? It's his legs, right? Getting on those bootleg action, things like that, being able to move the pocket a little bit. Also, he was a shorter quarterback. Well, if you have a guy who's more of the stature of a Vandegrift or a Beck in there, that's going to be more in the pocket, taller type guy, then I think that's going to change a little bit, even inside of Todd Monken's system, how the offense is called. Probably, listen, you said it, Monken loves to throw the football. So I think it's going to become even more pass happy in there on certain things. So definitely, I think there's lots to be, excited about for if you're a wide receiver that's considering Georgia. Jed, one name that, is kind of Georgia's making a run at in 2024 is Josiah Trader, who has connections to a Dylan Raiola. If Dylan were to come on board.
Yeah, and Jeremiah Smith as well, who's a guy that Dylan mentioned is still committed to Ohio State. Which talk about JoJo Trader, he's a guy who he talked with our Florida analyst Ryan Wright, and he said, I think he said he had like a top 5. I think, I don't remember exactly, but Ryan asked him, "Hey, are there any schools making up ground?" He's like, "Yeah, Georgia. I mean, people think it's because of the national championships, but I like the way they run their offense. I like what they do with their receivers." And those are some names that, I mean, Jeremiah Smith is the number 2 player in the country, obviously number 1 receiver. And JoJo Trader is probably top, 25, 30, I think, off the top of my head. So those are 2 guys that Georgia hasn't really necessarily been in it with. And then KJ Bolden could end up at receiver. He's a top 30 guy. Mike Matthews is top 20. I mean, and those are the names that Georgia's in it with in this 24 class. And obviously you got to close the deal and land them, but
you said Zion Reagan's right.
Zion Reagan, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. Zion Reagan's is like almost a forgotten guy, and he's a top, 100, 150 prospect with blazing speed. I mean, those are the names Georgia's really in it with at receiver in this class. So definitely, going for some bigger fish, I think, than maybe they have.
I think one of the things that's overlooked in this class, not only is Brian McClendon, but Todd Monken's a wide receiver guy. And, the wide receiver is really changed since he's been there. That they didn't have as much success, but he was able to pull, like I said, Ladd, guys who thought fit his system. And now I think he'll be able to pull, bigger fish type guys because he's a wide receiver guy, and you got that on top of what BMAC is, and he's just an elite recruiter. So I think that's another reason.
Absolutely. And last question, I can answer this one real quickly. Big Dog, it says, has anything changed with 4-star corner Ellis Robinson? Still favored for his commitment sign day. I think Georgia's in a good spot there. He's set to commit February 1st. So, guys, this has been UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts presented by Turner Wood & Smith Insurance in cooperation with Auto Owners. We had number 1 prospect in the 2024 class, Dylan Raiola, on with us for the first 15 minutes. So go back and check that out. I think you're going to find a lot of the things that he said very, very interesting. We even broke some news here. He's going to be visiting March 18th. That's breaking here on UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts for the first spring practice over there. So he will be in town in Athens then. Make sure you subscribe, you like, you turn on notifications. Wednesday night, this same time, 8:30, I'll be live here with Tavares King and Noshawn Marino, as we are every week on the new show, Georgia Players Section, where TK and Noshawn give their view on things from a former Georgia player standpoint. So appreciate everybody tuning in. For my guys, Jed May and Trent Smallwood, I am Blaine Gilmer. Thank all of you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next Monday night at 8:30 for another episode of UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts.